What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of What's on Second, a true baseball podcast. It is truly a podcast this episode. This will also
Yes.
go on YouTube as well, but it's the podcast. It is the season finale of the 2023 season, season
Crazy.
finale of season one of What's on Second, a true baseball podcast. A lot of things are happening here to finish this season off. But the biggest thing is Michael and Richie are back on the diamond yet again. After a little bit of a hiatus, obviously the podcast group of listeners has probably been like, where have you been? We promised you, should have checked out our YouTube. We promised you all the shows were there. The only show that did not happen was a World Series show. Obviously, we are going to touch on all of that as we do this episode here. If you are wondering what we thought about the playoffs step by step, go check the YouTube out. That's where they all are. We're not going to go through all of the step-by-step here.
We'd be here all night.
We'd be here all night. And we don't have that time or the energy for it, no matter how much Michael and I are sick in the head. But regardless, we also have one bit of good news we do have to share with the group. And Michael doesn't even know I'm going to do this to him, but I'm going to put him on blast because that's what we do here. We do have to congratulate Michael because he is now part of the Affiance Club. He is fully engaged now to his wonderful now fiance Jess. We're very happy for you, so claps to you, sir. Welcome to the soon to be married club.
Thank you.
Very happy for you, very happy for Jess as well. But
thank you. I will pass that along to her. I've been getting that left and right. She's been getting it left and right. I've been the one getting yelled at though, because I cannot, for whatever reason, just say fiance. I keep saying girlfriend, and
it's a hard retraining. Don't worry, I understand. It takes a minute. Yeah, it does take a minute to replay.
Everyone keeps looking at me like, "What'd you call her?"
So yeah, like, of course, and of course, naturally they're jerks about it and go, "Oh, what'd you call her?"
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. But we are very happy for you as well. So congratulations on that front. We also have obviously taken time. We've had some sickness. We've had some moving. We've had some traveling. There's been a lot of stuff happening here in life. So we do apologize that it is now obviously November 21st when we were recording this. The preview of Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in this situation here.
Absolutely.
But we do have some baseball to talk about because we have a season to wrap up. So, Michael, what do we got on our lineup card for today, buddy?
Alrighty, guys. This is probably going to be somewhat of a long episode. Like Richie said, it's not. Oh, absolutely. Like Richie said, it's not going to be live streamed on YouTube. This is somewhat of a podcast episode with just the VOD getting published. And like I said, and we've talked about all throughout this season, I mean, it is just nuts that this is the last episode of 2023. It flew by. I mean, Richie will say it just like I am. We kind of did this on the fly. And spoiler warning, we're still going to be doing this on the fly in season 2.
Yeah, no kidding. If we had a set schedule, that's not us. That's
I would be concerned.
Yeah,
no, not at all. But yeah, this year was a lot of fun. And one of the main things that I would say from time to time during these like lineup cards are, this should be a short episode. This should be a short episode. This probably is not going to be the shortest of episodes. However, I'm hungry, haven't eaten dinner yet. I have a hungry fiance that's going to be wanting some food here soon.
Hey, how about that? He said at the right time. That's why we clap it up.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So we're going to try to get this out as quick as I can so we can go get some food.
Absolutely.
But for this edition of What's on Second, a baseball season finale, we're going to kind of go over the NLCS and ALCS very quickly. We're going to then go over the World Series very quickly as well, and the ratings. Richie has talked about since the beginning, like, oh, there's going to come a time where Michael and Rich are just like going at it, not in like a bad way.
In a healthy debate forum.
Healthy debate forum. This ratings thing, which he brought up a couple of times at the start of the World Series and as it went through and the ratings came in, I was definitely like, ooh, all right, once we get to this podcast, we're going to actually have some fruitful discussions. Then we're going to kind of move on to just a hodgepodge of information. We have 8 new managers that have been hired since the end of the baseball season. We're going to talk about some comments in regards to Shohei and the Yankees that, Brian Cashman continually just word vomits all over himself with no regard.
Which still shockingly that one of the new managers is not in the Bronx. We'll still talk about that
surprised.
too.
Then I'm going to go over just some notable transactions that have happened. There's not a ton, just a couple of them. Before we quickly go over just a couple of free agency predictions, if we started this at like 5 o'clock and I didn't get off at 4:30 and have to deal with traffic, we probably would have done at least 20 of them if we had enough time. But
yeah,
we're just going to kind of go over a few. Exactly. Before we wrap up our finale with our finale of our episode, which is Bog Talk. Richie's baby that kind of came about a little bit into the season. Mm-hmm. He actually does not have any Bog Talks to kind of give me. So I said, you know what? I got.
We say that now, but Richie also develops that very quick trigger of being able to find one pretty darn fast when we do the episodes, and I've added numerous of them to the episode as I've been doing it. So it's not unheard of that I might not pull one out of my hat here.
I look forward to it if that's the case. But guys, without further ado, we're going to hop right into it. The ALCS, I'll get this out of the way, was one of the more fun ones because it was the showdown in Texas. It was the Rangers versus the Astros, and I think it was a bit of everything that we thought it would be, and it wouldn't. There was some slugfest, there was some good pitching, there was some good and bad defense. It just had the whole gambit of what you look for in a playoff series against two Titans. And obviously the Rangers advanced.
It did have one thing that was missing. A home team winning a game.
Yeah, I mean, in both.
I don't know if I've ever watched a whole series where I'm like, why is the home team not winning a game?
I think that was the first time in history.
I think it might have been. It has to be. Mm-hmm. If it's not, it's got to be something dated very, very far back that we're going to have to go back into the archives for. But it was nuts to me that no home team won a single game there.
Yep. I enjoy the ALCS. It was a lot of fun. I think I've admitted on the podcast that I am over the cheating scandal with Houston, but it was nice to see a different team make it to the World Series.
I mean, all Houston does is go to the CSs, so it's kind of nice to see somebody else take the mantle for once.
Exactly. This was the first World Series since 2016 that the Dodgers and the Astros were not a part of in some way, shape, or form. So it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
However, we'll go to the NLCS real quick. Richie, do you have anything to add?
On the ALCS, I actually enjoyed it. It was actually kind of fun to watch. It was I thought you kind of saw stars being born. I will continue to say this. People who doubted Corey Seager, you can't doubt anymore. Man proved you all wrong. I mean, that dude is a bona fide slugger. And Texas has always been a lineup that when healthy, they are a bona fide team. When their starting rotation is great, they will be even better. So I hate to say this, they're going to be even better than they were at this playoff run, pending they stay healthy. But I mean, like, you're talking about notable misses. Scherzer was out for most of the playoffs until like the back end of the CS. DeGrom was out for the entire year for the most part again. I don't think he's coming back next year. I think he's coming back 25, right? Yeah. So because Tommy John. So I mean, granted, we saw Bryce Harper beat it earlier. I know it's a pitcher, so it's obviously a little more difficult, but stranger things are starting to happen. And I mean, even Shohei is getting told that we might be able to see him pitch this year. Rumored? I don't know. It's a stretch. It's a very big stretch, but we'll see what happens with that. But Texas is here, and they invested that money, and we all were kind of like shocked when they invested it and nothing happened. And then they brought in a manager that actually makes the difference. Oh, wait, I do say a manager makes a difference. This is a crazy thought. But I might have said this, in the past show. I think I've said this all year. Managers do make a difference. As much as we like to write them off as they don't do very much. And they don't. I mean, they're game managers more than anything. They make 3 or 4 moves a game that is going to impact it. But if you have the right guy in the right spot, they will do it right then and there. I mean, kudos to Dusty Baker. happy retirement to him as well. I know that's a sidebar, but I know it's not the way he wanted to go out. But hey,
I'll throw a sidebar too, real quick for you. I think Bruce Bochy cemented himself as a Hall of Famer.
I thought he was already, but yeah, even more so now.
I was going to say when he finished off that dynasty 3 championships in 5 years with San Francisco, I think this would have to even more so cement like first ballot if it wasn't already.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think absolutely. I think there's no doubt. I would vote him in tomorrow if they had a choice. Yeah. He's easily in there. I mean, shoot, he gets 2 more. He's going to be the Michael Jordan of managers. He's going to have a ring on every finger. Yeah. We'll see if that happens. But the NL, I guess I'll get this out of the way quickly. I'm mad. I'm bitter. Very frustrated. You were there the day after we had a conversation. Obviously, the day afterwards, it was not a fun conversation that you and I had. The frankness of the matter is the bats went cold, and frankly, the Phillies did the one thing you cannot do against a team that has nothing to lose playing its heart out. You have to step on their throat when you have the chance to step on their throat. And if you don't do it and you let them back, anything is possible. The Diamondbacks proved that. That is all it was. The Phillies cost themselves in games 3 and 4 to potentially wipe that out. They needed to win one of those 2 games. And that series is over because game 5, obviously, we saw what happened when Wheeler took the hill again. Games 1 and 2, they destroyed them. It wasn't even a contest. I mean, yeah, game 1 was a little closer because of, I think, a 2-run home run by Perdomo and like stuff like that. So score-wise, it looked closer. But Wheeler dominated them every time he went out there. Nola dominated them in game 2, and they just thrashed them. You put up a 10 spot on them and basically beat their 2 aces into oblivion. And then you go back to Arizona, and I think they honestly got soft. I think they got cocky. I think they were ready to roll over and think that Arizona was just going to roll over and die. And that's not what happened. Arizona came back and showed their grit. And game 3, you have to, all credit to Fat when he pitched that. I'm not trying to be jerk when I say Fat. His name is actually Brandon Fat. Fat, I guess is the correct pronunciation, Fat. But, he pitched a dynamite game. And you still had a lead going into that. You were down. You had a 1-0 lead against him when he left. I mean, you got to finish the game. They won 2-1 by Craig Kimbrell blowing a game. Okay. Well, when you go to you get a 2-run lead in game 4, you have a stranglehold on the whole thing, and you decide to give up a 2-run home run to Alek Thomas. Alek Thomas is not good, ladies and gentlemen. Not a good hitter. He's a great fielder. Unreal. Covers that ground out in center field there like nobody's business. That ballpark also sucks. I hate Chase Field. I'm so sorry. I hate it. It's so freaking cavernous. Balls that were hit there should have been home runs in any other ballpark. Anywhere in center field. If you hit a good ball to center field, it was an out. And it made no sense to me. And this is for both sides because Moreno hit a shot that Johan Rojas ran down. Should not have been caught at all. It should have been in the decks out there. Corbin Carroll hit one that was a nuke anywhere else is a catch and an out there. Like, you can't do it. And then, you go out there and you blow the game to Alek Thomas with, I don't know, the same bozo on the hill in Craig Kimbrell. Phillies, you have one job this offseason. You need to get a real closer. A real one. Yeah. A real one. There's a great one by the name of Josh Hader out there. Pay him. Pay the man. Pay the man. I don't want to hear another thing about it. Or trade for one of them, because, I don't care. You could trade for Bednar. You could trade for Diaz if the Reds want to trade him. I don't know why they would, but sometimes they do weird things like that in Cincinnati. Trade for him. Get a real closer. I don't want to see Craig Kimbrell's never allowed in the city of Philadelphia again. He is by far never getting signed here again. So I can tell you that. I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Kimbrell doesn't get signed this offseason. That's how bad this is. This is a track record for him. So it's not new. Everybody knew it too. and we still did it. So just harboring my bitterness. I'm moving on. But and then the batch just went cold. Games, you go back to the bank and you think you have all the momentum. You need to win one game at the bank, and you go out there and you are hacking. Trey Turner and Nick Castellanos looked like the Trey Turner of early this year and the Nick Castellanos of last year. So I was loving that. All of a sudden we swing it. I'm over here going slider out of the zone, still chase. Slider. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to hold 2 fingers. If I'm a catcher, I'm holding 2 fingers down, or 3, whoever is pitching it. And I'm saying, stick it out here and watch him swing, because they're not going to hit it, because it's impossible to hit, because it's a terrible pitch. But they're still going to swing at it. So why not throw it out there? I was very angry. All credit is due. Arizona won that series because Philadelphia gave it to them. Diamondbacks didn't win that series. Philly handed them a series. There is no way you can convince me otherwise, because what the World Series was exactly what should have happened in the NLCS, because a good team did that. And that is exactly the segue I want to use to go in there, because Texas did what Philly should have done. They put them down, and when they had to step on their throats, they did, and finished it. They didn't give them a second to breathe. Yes, Arizona won game 2. All credit where credit is due. They won the second game. They didn't win that by more than a sliver. Texas then shut it down.
Yeah.
Texas doesn't have a good bullpen either. I don't know if anybody notices that, but Texas won this year purely from the fact that they were playing a vastly inferior opponent. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a Diamondback hater. I'm really not. I'm just being honest. When you look at the 2 lineups next to each other, the only one guy that matches stride for stride is Corbin Carroll on the D-backs versus that entire other line. And Gabby Moreno is going to be that guy. Okay. He may not be totally there yet, but he is going to be that guy. So he's not the best catcher in baseball yet, but boy, he's number 2, if not 1A. If it's not JT, it's him. So between those 2, it's them. And then there's a vast drop off after that. So
I mean, I think it was game 1 when they were leading going into the 8th or the 9th inning, and Sewald finally had a hiccup. I know Paul had the numbers to back him up as a good closer this year. He's not someone that I would feel fantastic about coming in to close the game. He dots, but I cannot. And then the announcer called it immediately. Oh, watch Corey Seager go yard here to tie the game. Boom, absolute nuke.
Well, Sewald's so easy to hit. He has 2 pitches. It's a fastball and a slider. And if the slider's not locating, which it wasn't in that 9th inning, if you watch it, it wasn't locating, then he goes to his fastball to dot it. Now, he can dot that thing all over the place, but he usually sets that up for his slider to be his out pitch. Well, if he hangs the slider, it's a nuke ball central, because it's just spinning up there. And I don't know, Corey Seager only deposited that 700 rows back.
It's
never in question.
It's like you said, this, I mean, really the season, but this postseason really just solidified how much of a stud that Corey Seager is and has been, that Diamondbacks fans knew for quite a while and then had to have it all smeared in their face yet again. But I think the Diamondbacks, when I say overachieved, I don't say it in a negative way, kind of like what you said, to beat down on them, to be negative.
No, they did overachieve.
They did what Cleveland couldn't do last year, which was progress and not, I don't want to say give up like Cleveland did, but Cleveland ran out of gas a lot quicker. Whereas Arizona, they had gotten hot at the right time, squeaked into the playoffs like the Phillies did 2 years ago. And then they were just able to get those timely hits, and they used that it's the Diamondbacks, they have no shot, absolutely embarrassed the Dodgers. Then they got to the Phillies and they had a tough series with them, but it's like you said, if Kimbrel doesn't blow that one game, well, then Philly wins in what, game 6? So
Game 5. Yeah, it's over. We don't.
So
Philly gave them the series. And I know. Look, D-backs people are going to come at me because obviously I'm wearing a Phillies hat right now, and everybody knows that I have a slight bias. But I'm being as honest as I could be, because as I watched the game, obviously I gave you got my raw reaction, which was not fun for you, and I appreciate you being my therapist at that time for it. But that was my raw reaction. When I took a step back, I look at everything, and there is just nothing that makes sense to how you lose that. They have two pitchers that are good, and then they have an bullpen
game.
And then they have they have a decent lineup. I'm not saying they're not good potentially, but you have one superstar, and you actually, for the most part, neutralized him until game 6 and 7 when you started to let him run off the rails. You took the two guys out, so it made no sense to me. But Texas did what they needed to.
I'll use my next point to segue into this ratings debate, which
go ahead.
We'll try to make as quick as possible, because then I think we can get through most of the rest of the episode pretty quickly.
Good.
Knocking on wood.
That was your kiss of death right there.
Yes, it was. So the kiss of death is just in there.
Don't say that too loud. You're engaged.
Anyway,
I hope that stays in the show. I can't wait till she hears that, and I can't wait till I don't get to hear another episode with him.
Exactly.
Co-host.
No, so I mean, Arizona was the embodiment of get hot at the right time. So sure, on paper, was their bullpen great? No, but the bullpen pitchers made their pitches when they needed to.
Yep.
Gallen, even though he was a stud in the regular season, arguably hiccuped nearly the entire postseason.
He was pretty awful. I'm not gonna lie. All postseason, he was not nice.
I think Merrill Kelly actually pitched better than what Gallen did.
100%.
And Fott had a really good showing in the playoffs, and I think he's going to vie for a spot in the major league roster come spring training.
But, he's definitely in. I don't think there's no way you can't have him. In my opinion.
The whole Arizona embodied get hot at the right time, and also just make it to October. You never know what can happen.
True.
It's a lot of people complained about that because, we can't, the playoffs can't have the Diamondbacks making it. They can't have a Rangers making it. In theory, they can't have a Minnesota making it, a Cleveland making it. It's got to be New York, LA, Boston. At this point now, Houston. Like, sure, if you go off of a rating standpoint, you go back and look when Houston was in it, they had at least 13 to 15 million viewers per game, roughly.
Sure, roughly.
But baseball can't survive off of that, because if they do, and it's only that at the end of the season, you start losing a lot of fans and a lot of momentum and steam, because why are you going to go and pay $200 to take your family to a baseball game when your team A isn't going to make it to the playoffs, and B isn't going to progress because the Dodgers aren't going to make it, can't do it. The Yankees aren't going to do it. Shoot, the Yankees were a bottom 4 or 5 team. I think it's a baloney excuse to say that it has to be LA. It has to be.
I agree.
New York. I think Philadelphia and Houston more recently has been one of those that has been like, it doesn't need to be the major market club, because I don't think Houston is a big market.
No, I'd say they're probably they're on the higher end of a mid market, but
but they're not afraid to spend money, whereas Cleveland is. I truly feel like, and this is me trying not to be biased, Cleveland could be a mid-market team instead of a small market team if their owner would just spend money.
Oh yeah, they should be a mid-market team. There's no excuse for them not to be a mid-market team,
because Cleveland is a sports town in general, let alone a baseball town. I mean, not to get off sport, but when you think of Cleveland, a lot of the times you think of the Browns. But I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like Cleveland's more of a baseball city if you had to choose between one of the three major teams. But
especially because the fact that the Browns have sucked for how long now?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound, but I'm just being honest.
I mean, hey, at least you're 7-3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but they've in recent history, obviously this year is the exception to the rule.
Yeah,
but they've been awful recently. They're always in that bottom feeder side of things.
So I would say I think part of what maybe hurt the Diamondbacks in this year, because this year's World Series was the least watched ever or in quite a long time. If you really think about it, I mean, Texas had a bunch of star players and names, whereas Arizona arguably didn't, unless you're two nut jobs like you and I who know how many countless MLB players and minor leaguers, or outside of Arizona fans. If you put a prime JD Martinez back on that squad, if you put big time bullpen players, pitchers, I'm just going to say it. Obviously, it would never happen in a trillion years, but like Shohei's on that team, there's going to be quite a few people watching that World Series. So I think it's not necessarily small market teams and it not being LA or New York. It's the fact that the Diamondbacks, their roster was just so young. If Cleveland and Chicago had one of the best viewership World Series when in 2016, because of the notoriety of both teams, but also because it was the two teams with the longest sports droughts.
Yeah,
exactly. Now, then you come to this one, and it's, well, the Diamondbacks had only made one, and they won it in 2001, and then the Rangers are 0-2 so far. But I feel like if you go and you get more known names, a more established team, like if Cleveland would have made it to the World Series in 2022, I don't think they would have had nearly as many viewers.
I think also the biggest thing that hurt this World Series as far as viewership, and I'm not even going to blame someone. I think a huge point is the teams. I think they're so skewed. You can totally tell, and this is where the NLCS was also the same thing, and why it frustrates the crud out of me so much more than even like losing in the World Series last year. The Phillies didn't lose to a better opponent this year. The Phillies lost to a better opponent in the World Series 2 years ago. They lost to the Astros, and the Astros were a better team, arguably, or at least they were equal. So that's fine. You can live with that. It sucks, but you can live with it.
Yeah.
This is a team that is definitely below. And I think that's a huge issue. The Diamondbacks are so below Texas. And I'm not just talking about money-wise. I'm talking just straight talent-wise. Like, matchup for matchup, the only matchup, I mean, I hate to tell you, even if you put Corbin Carroll in center field, and he wins his matchup there. I mean, technically he plays right field more often than center field. So he goes against the Dulles there. You could toss that up as who's a better fielder. I mean, obviously we both agree it'll be Corbin, but better player is Corbin, but everything else, we can agree that Gabby Moreno might be slightly better than Jonah Heim, but not by much. And after that,
but it's because
Marte is the only other argument, and it's against Marcus Semien, and I'm going to go Marcus Semien all day long. So I think that the biggest thing that hurt this year was the fact that you had just such a skewed thing. I watched, I'm going to be really honest, and I'm going to, confessional going right now. I watched not a minute of the World Series. A, I was frustrated, but B, I knew how it was going to end. Now, that does not mean I didn't watch all the highlights and I didn't go back and watch the recaps. I watched all of that because obviously I do the show. I need to have a due diligence and I have to have an understanding of what's going on just for doing our job here on the show. Obviously, it's a volunteer job, but still, regardless, the job for us. But I didn't watch a minute of it live because I already knew where this was going to end up. And people go, "Oh, you don't know that for sure." No, really, there is nothing I could have told you and promised you more than that World Series was going to end in 5 or 6 games, and it was going to be Texas. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you that. I hate to be the guy that's the bearer of bad news to Diamondbacks fans that thought they really had a shot. You didn't. You didn't belong there anyway. If that game flips and you put Philly in that series, it's now an even heads-up World Series that people are captivated to watch. It's interesting. Everybody and their mother knew, and that there was no way that the Diamondbacks were going to beat them on that. Now, if they won the first 2 games and maybe like flipped the script, then maybe it would have gotten some more viewership and it would have probably done that. But it was exactly as everybody predicted. So nobody that was on the fringe tuned in because we know where we are.
Now, to give you a bit of a hypothetical situation, say this is in 2 or 3 years' time from when it actually happened, and Gabby's established, Corbin's even more established, Alec Thomas has worked on his hitting, he's more established. They have a cohesively and all-around more established team. Do you think it's a little different?
Yes, because I think they'll also be threatening the Dodgers more. I think they'll be threatening. Obviously, the Padres were a mess this year, but they were the ones that were supposed to be the threat, not the Diamondbacks. Like we said, the Diamondbacks overachieved this year. Again, credit where credit is due. It's a great job by them, and their organization should be commended as such. But they're not the team. Like and it has nothing to do with where they are. They honestly should be one of the upper mid-market teams too. They have just as many sports franchises as Cleveland or things like that. Like if you have 3 of the big, if you have 4 for 4 or 3 for 4 in the big sports, you are no longer a small market team, in my opinion. You are a major player. You have enough money to have at least 3 of the 4 major teams. And honestly, if they really wanted to, Cleveland could easily have an NHL team, and Arizona actually does. Actually, Arizona is a 4 for 4 team, which makes it even more of their case. They should be higher market teams. You have no excuse not to fill those rosters accordingly. Now, Phoenix or Arizona may do that now because they've had their come to Jesus moment, or at least you would love to think so. If they don't, they need to shoot themselves in the foot, because there's no reason they should not be in these games for, will you shine Shohei Ohtani? Probably not. Like, no, I'm not betting on you to do it. But you should be a big market guy in, I don't know, maybe a name that, and I'm not going to say that this is a free agent prediction by any stretch of the imagination, but you should be in on a Rhys Hoskins. You should be on a Jorge Candelario. You should be in on these kind of not A+ level guys, but at least A's. You should be in on.
I would say they should be in on like Blake Snell, stuff like that. They've shown us that they would do that before when they signed Zach Greinke. So
Blake Snell would be a huge signing for them. I think there's a lot of Snell stuff that I don't like, but you should be in on Sonny Gray. You should be in on I know Reynaldo just signed, but the left-hander from Detroit who blocked the trade last year that I can't remember his name.
Eduardo Rodriguez.
Eduardo Rodriguez is another name they should be in on. Because he's not vetoing anything like that. He vetoed trades because of his family. He didn't want to do it then. He's open to it now. He's said it numerous times. So wouldn't be surprised if LA goes and signs him now. But unless they feel like scolded by him and they're going to be petty about it, which,
fans are. I would give the team more of a leg up on that. But the fans are all being.
But I mean, also Corbin Burns, you can go trade for him. There's a lot of moves you could make. They should have been in on Nola, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm very happy they didn't get him, but they should have been in on that.
Yeah.
And there's teams that have paid. He was offered more money. Obviously, I'm not trying to sidebar this, but obviously, but there is a reason that you should be in on this. There are guys that would be excited to go play in Arizona, especially pitchers. I don't know if you're not a pitcher, if you're not wanting to go to Arizona, I don't know what's wrong with you. That ballpark will save you no matter what. I mean, that
didn't used to be the
cavern as hell.
It did not used to be the case, but because they were giving up so many runs and home runs and whatnot, they put a humidor in there within the last several years, and that's what's killed the home run rate there. It used to be, I think, not as much of a home run hitter park like Coors Field is, but but the ball used to fly out of there all the time.
Yeah.
And then they put that stupid humidor in there. But
yeah, I mean, I get it. It is what it is, but there's no reason that these mid-market teams should not be involved. And it's not the rating. The ratings, I think, have nothing to do with who was okay. It has slightly to do with who was in it because of that team being that team, but it had to do with the matchup so sideways that, like I said, who in their right mind is not? If you were a gambling man, and selfishly I'll say I am, but like if I was going to go to a sports book and I'm going to put a bet on the World Series between those two teams, I mean, the money isn't worth me to put it on Texas because I'm not going to get any return because it's so obviously skewed in their benefit.
Yeah.
Like I might take $5, throw it out the window and try to bet on Arizona because I might just win a boatload of money for fun. Like it was that far skewed. That's the problem with it. That's where the ratings, I think, go sideways. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand. I don't think it has to do so much with the whole LA. It's not Boston. It's not Philly. It's not any of the major markets. I don't think that matters. I think purely this was a matchup thing. The matchup sucked. And all it comes down to is you could tell that Texas was going to come out here. And as long as Texas didn't do what Philly did, which they just watched an example of what not to do, don't get complacent. They're here for a reason. But we're also, you can't get complacent because it's the World Series. That's the beautiful thing. We made it to the end goal. Texas was given their World Series. I'll tell you another World Series that had really crap ratings. 2008. I don't know if you remember who that was, but it was a major market team. It was that one. It was the Phillies and the Rays. And I'm not going to, don't blame the Rays. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the matchup sucked. The best team player on the Rays at that point was rookie Evan Longoria. I know. And yes, that's the same Evan Longoria who played in this World Series. It's nuts. But that was their best player at the time. They had nobody else. Nobody. What is there to fear? And it happened exactly that way. If the matchup sucks, it's going to not produce ratings. If the matchup is great, it will produce ratings. Look at Monday Night Football yesterday. You had one of the best matchups in prime time yesterday, and it was the highest rated Monday Night Football game all year, and I think in the last while. It had like 4.5 million people watch it. It's ridiculous. If the matchup's good, people will watch. If it stinks, it won't happen. That's all it is. I know normally you and I are kind of agreeing, kind of battling on the ratings when it comes to the team. I don't think it's the team this time. I think it's just purely the matchup itself sucked.
Yeah. But we'll go ahead and move on now to the new managers. I'm going to kind of flip my setup here around just a little bit. That way we can get this ball rolling here. Sure. Cleveland hired Stephen Vogt to succeed Terry Francona, which at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a gamble because Vogt has one of the best.
I think one of the honestly the best manager hirings all year.
Yes. He doesn't obviously have any manager experience. He was just a coach in Seattle this past season, this season that just wrapped up in 2023. But all around the board, from analyst perspective, I mean, Cleveland fans think it's cheap because it's not some well-known name that's been doing it for 10 years like Tito had.
But here's the thing, though, and this is where I combat that, and I'm not trying to step on your toes, so I apologize for interrupting you. But he is well-known. He was a great catcher for a long time. He is a great game manager. He was probably one of the best catchers as far as like calling a game that have been in the league for years.
But I
know he finished in Oakland, which probably doesn't help anybody's like interpretation, which isn't his fault, but he's well known in the baseball community. Yeah. So I think that's an incorrect assumption by people that don't know in Cleveland and elsewhere. If that's the assumption by people, he is a great baseball mind. That's why I think he's arguably the best signing for me.
Great baseball mind, but he's also a fantastic clubhouse guy.
Correct.
He knows what it's like to work with young players. And I mean, I just think it was one of the best options that Cleveland could have gone with.
I
The
completely agree.
The next signing, which I think is fantastic, I wouldn't have minded this one either, but it works so well for them, is Ron Washington being hired by the Angels. I think that was a few years too late
I
because
agree.
he could have done wonders. Who knows where Anaheim would have ended up finishing, but it's just unfortunate he's not going to be able to coach Shohei because he's not going back to Anaheim. But
No.
I think that was a fantastic hire for the Angels. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to bring culture, respect, and expectations to a clubhouse that arguably is going to be, if not drastically different, I mean, completely different from top to bottom.
Yeah. I think Ron Washington deserved a job. Maybe I don't. Part of me wishes it wasn't Anaheim because I feel like he's walking into a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And I think he's better than that. I think he deserves a million times better. Honest to God, if I was, this might be selfish of me to say, but if I was Atlanta, I would have let Snicker walk and I would have put Washington in the chair there because I think he's a better player. I think he would have been a better manager. I think he would be the difference to get them over the hump in the playoffs. I think anybody can manage them in the regular season. It's, it's like what I've said over and over again to you.
Yeah.
A blind monkey can go in there and manage that team in the regular season and they'll do fine and they'll get probably 90 to 100 wins with their eyes closed. In the playoffs, I think Ron Washington would have been a better choice, and I think he would be the difference. And I think he would have been better off to be in Atlanta. I hope he does well in Anaheim because I hope somebody can freaking do it there.
Yeah, and if anyone can at the moment, at least with the roster minus Shohei, it's him. Although I think Washington would have been better in a few different teams. The first of which is Houston. They hired Joe Espada, or they more promoted Espada to the manager role, which I thought was a great move. I know
I agree.
He is another good baseball mind that is well regarded and respected around the league.
Yeah.
Houston could have been a good spot for Ron, but Joe's been there. He knows the culture. He knows the team, top to bottom. I think that was the perfect signing.
There's no reason to buck that.
No.
That team has made 7 consecutive ALCSs. You don't need to buck it with changing anything like that. And I know obviously there's the cheating scandals in there, and obviously managers have left. At this point, since that has gone and Dusty's come in and righted that ship.
Yep.
That clubhouse needs to stay in that same chemistry. Espada's the next logical person. It's a perfect move.
Yeah. I was going to say Espada was one of the people that I was kind of hoping Cleveland would interview and potentially hire, but I think Cleveland got their right guy in Stephen Vogt. Too. I think another spot Ron Washington would have fit well in is Milwaukee. They promoted Pat Murphy.
That.
Yeah.
Did they? Okay, I missed that one. I was wondering what they did in Milwaukee. I
like that.
I don't like that move either. I think that Council was very instrumental in there. I'm sure we're going to get in on that in a minute, so I'm not going to go there yet. But because there's a lot I have to say on that move. But I think that's a miss, and I think Milwaukee will be regressing this year.
I completely agree. We'll just go ahead into the next team. Chicago pulled a 2015 or 2016. I think they hired Joe in 2015. Chicago several years ago had Rick Renteria as their manager, did a great job with the Cubs, helping get them on the right track. And then they spurned him, fired Renteria really for no reason other than, let's go get a pedigreed, well-established manager in Joe Madden. David Ross did not do a terrible job last year. Sure. Did he miss the playoffs? Yeah. Did he miss the playoffs? Yes, he did. He underachieved. But he was on the right track let alone as the guy who helped get the Cubs their championship after 108 years, knew the city, knew the culture, whole 9 yards, but a guy came available where he's got a longer, more established pedigree than what Ross has in Craig Counsell.
I hated the move, honestly. I think that I think Chicago did one of their own very dirty. I think that was so shady to do that to David Ross of all people.
100%.
I know Renteria was the similar situation. At least Renteria was kind of a, I don't want to say a no name because that's not very fair, but
no,
like
he was kind of,
but he wasn't established there. Like he was probably there to buy time, honestly, is what he was there for. And I'm sure that was disclosed to him that you're here to buy time right now. We don't have anybody else. We like what you're bringing to the table. If you overachieve, great, then we won't supplant you. But if you do exactly what we think you'll do, then we're going to supplant you when the time comes. David Ross, that team wasn't ready for the playoffs this year. That team hasn't been ready for the playoffs in years. The fact that they have made their moves and they did a great job, the front office bought in, they didn't sell Bellinger, they didn't do any of that stuff, and they bought Candelario back. They did all this stuff, and all these things looked positive. And yes, did they collapse? Absolutely. They had the stranglehold on that wild card spot, and they let it slip.
Yeah,
that is on them. There is no argument. But it is not a fireable offense when the guy took a team that, first off, when he was hired, was just booty flakes. I mean, awful. Had not a cornerstone to build around. Now you have Dansby Swanson. You've got Cody Bellinger to build around. That was going really well. And then you go and you do this. If you had any hope of signing Cody Bellinger, I feel like it's gone now, because I feel like Bellinger looked at that and went, you kidding me? Did you just do what I thought see you do? I mean, don't get me wrong, Craig Counsell, none of this is on him. Craig Counsell is taking an opportunity to coach a team that could be really good in a great city that is a baseball city with a lot of history. I get it. And I get it. But at the same point in time, if I'm Craig Counsell, I'm a little spurned at what I just saw there too, even though I'm the new guy coming in. Yeah. And I just did all that stuff in Milwaukee. I'd be like, if I'm Milwaukee, I'm a little angry too. Why are you leaving? They still had him technically under contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Wrong. His contract. It expired.
Was he a lame duck this year? Okay.
Yes. It expired. I
apologize. I was wrong.
No, you're good. His contract was up, but it was more so that I think if he would have gone to New York, like what you and I kind of thought he was going to do, I think Milwaukee would have been like, but whatever. Yeah. It's the fact that he went to the Cubs.
Yeah, he went to the Cubs, an in rival. And not only that, but the Brewers, I think, are a better roster than the Cubs right now. Like, they should be. Arguably, they should be a better roster than the Cubs with all the turmoil that the Cubs were going to go through this offseason, because you knew Bellinger wasn't signed. You knew the only thing you have signed is Dansby, and then whatever is already on the roster as far as like arbitration goes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which I honestly didn't do a deep dive into that. But like, you don't have Candelario. Could bring him back. I would imagine that's probably an easy pitch to do. But you don't have Candelario. You don't have Bellinger. I think Wisdom is either done or his contract is due in the next year or two. So he's going to leave soon. Like, and I know he regressed horribly this year, but still, like, all of the pieces that you would build around besides Dansby are gone. So what is there to go there for? There's a lot of things that make me question. Again, nothing wrong with Craig Counsell. Best of luck to you. I hope they put a roster around there for you, because you need one, because you're not going to do it yourself.
Yeah. Going on to the next coaching hire, I think this was a perfect fit. A little surprising, but when Bob Melvin was hired by the San Francisco Giants, I think that's great move by the Giants. Makes them one of those teams now to where free agents go, you know what? Nothing against Gabe Kapler, but Melvin knows his stuff, and I don't put any of the blame that with the Padres struggles last year on Bob. I don't put that on him at all.
That there was obviously something in the locker room that was a big mistake and a big mess.
Yeah.
Which we won't necessarily know, but I mean, Soto's been wanting out, and that's unusual. Soto usually kind of keeps his mouth shut and goes about business.
Yeah. The next one, which I think is a spot where Ron Washington could have been better suited in, is the Mets. They hired the Yankees' former bench coach, Carlos Mendoza.
I think this is
nothing against Mendoza. I just don't know him. Hadn't really heard of him.
I think it's a when they didn't sign Well, and the funny thing is they signed Mendoza before the council thing even took place, which made no sense to me because you and I mean, if I was the betting man, I would have put a good set of money on Craig Counsell becoming the manager of the Mets, especially if Buck was out. They went and regressed even further in manager. I feel like if you were going to do that, I would have kept Buck. Like at least Buck knows what he's doing in there. I don't know what this dude. I couldn't know from Adam, and it's a mistake. Just to quickly go back to the Giants move really quick with Melvin. We mentioned Gabe Kapler, and I know you said, no knock on Gabe Kapler. I honestly think Gabe Kapler was the knock on them. I hate to be that guy, and I'm not trying to be a Gabe Kapler hater. I think Gabe Kapler is not a bad manager. I think he's just a little too far out there sometimes and just does not use his eyes. He gets way too analytical for way too many reasons. But Gabe Kapler, I think, if you look at this, I think is the reason Aaron Judge is not a San Francisco Giant. Because, I mean, all signs were pointing if he didn't go to the Yankees, he was going to be a Giant. I think he's the reason that Shohei will not be a Giant. I would have not been a Giant. Now, granted, Melvin helps with that, so this is very possible that could change the script. I think Kapler cost them a lot of signings. I mean, he tried to sign, what's his name, Correa, and then that all went to hell in the handbasket. I think Gabe Kapler is a lot of that issue for them. I think it was very telling when they dismissed him because they didn't wait either. Like playoff time hit, season was over, playoffs hit, and he was out the door. So Melvin's a big signing for them there. I think he's a great move. I think the Padres are stupid for letting him walk, but
the Yankees have already replaced Mendoza, hiring Brad Ausmus to be the new bench coach, which is
that's a good move.
But I think it's a good move.
That's a good move because I think Brad Ausmus is another one of those guys that's if you may not be familiar with him, but I remember him very vividly as a player.
As a player, I don't remember him, but he was the manager in Detroit, and so I saw him quite a bit there, and then he was in Anaheim.
He's a good baseball mind. He has he has a lot of good baseball mind stuff in there. He's a good move. I think him being a bench coach is good. I think him being under Boone might be a mistake. I think it might want to flip that script, but hey, that's not my job. But that's a dumpster fire up there right now. So hey,
and then to finish this part off real quick here, Mike Shildt, the former Cardinals manager, was named the manager today of the Padres. That was my other spot. One, I mean, it hurt them that Melvin left, but I don't blame Bob Melvin in the slightest. That would have been an interesting spot for Ron Washington to go to, but I would honestly rather see him in Anaheim than San Diego because no one knows what's going to happen there.
San Diego's got something wrong. And it might be Machado, honestly. I don't know. I've heard rumors that it's Machado.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, I think that's who it is. I would rather be in Anaheim than San Diego because Anaheim is just a few tough moves away from replenishing their farm system and then being a rebuild away from being, a legit team.
I mean, you saw some of the kids last year come up there and do well. Hoppy, Moniak has a resurgence.
David Fletcher can be good.
Fletcher can be good. That kid Nemo is pretty good, or Nino, whatever his name is, the shortstop.
Neto.
Thank you.
Whatever.
Neto, whatever. Walsh out there in the outfield is good when he's healthy. Rendon might get his act together. Trout's still there for now. All things point to there's a lot more in Washington for Ron Washington in there than San Diego. Shildt also was the bench coach there, or he was a coach of some capacity. I don't know if he was bench coach or what he was in San Diego. So really it's kind of a in-house hire. Which I think is very interesting, but that also tells me something very interesting as well, that they didn't bring an outside source in there. So I don't know. Again, if the problem is, as you and I both have kind of hinted at, Machado, if it is Machado and he is the problem child, then they want to keep somebody that's already knows it, I guess, in the wings, which is weird. But, if that's the case and Machado's the problem, I hate to tell you this, but San Diego's going nowhere for a long time because even with all the signings they made, they look terrible this year. And if that's the case, forget it.
But we'll go ahead and transition into the few notable moves that have been made here before we get into our predictions real quick, and then finishing off with the Balk talk. On the 16th of this month, the White Sox traded left-handed pitcher Aaron Bummer to Atlanta for Mike Soroka and 4 other players. Interesting move.
I think Chicago wins that deal, actually. To be honest.
Yeah, but Bummer is a good bullpen piece, so it's unfortunate news for you.
Well, you know what he did. You know what that move is. That's clearly Atlanta going, we're signing you to take out 2 guys, take out Schwarber, take out Harper. That's all it is. That's the move. It's a literal move against one team. Not saying that Bummer's not going to get used elsewhere, but it's a move against one team.
It gives him a weapon against your big bats. The next move on the 17th, Cleveland just did a reliever swap with the Padres. We got Scott Barlow for Angel De Los Santos. Mm-hmm. It's a whatever move. De Los Santos was consistent and a reliable workhorse for Cleveland in 2023. Scott Barlow had been with Kansas City at one point before going to San Diego. I don't remember him being fantastically sharp in Kansas City, but he did have a sub-3 ERA in San Diego, so I'm not disappointed about it.
I think Barlow needs a little bit of development, which is good because he's going to Cleveland, which actually develops pitchers, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think he's got stuff. He had stuff in Kansas City. He had stuff in San Diego as well. He had a good year.
Mm-hmm.
If he can get developed the right way, which Cleveland can do, it'll be a good move. You know, it's a shame losing De Los Santos because I thought he was a pretty good guy that should be your setup man pretty much permanently. Even though they used him in the 7th every time, it drove me nuts. Because then you would bring in, then you would always bring in Stefan to come in there and blow it. So maybe we'll get smarter and get rid of that. But who knows?
Exactly.
But Barlow he's got potential. I think he could easily step into that setup role for you and be good.
Yeah. On the 18th, as Richie mentioned earlier in the episode, Philly got the free agent market started. Signing Aaron Nola, or I should say re-signing Aaron Nola to a 7-year, $172 million contract. It worked out for all parties, like Richie mentioned. He took less money to return to Philadelphia. He had more money from other teams because his big thing was he wanted the 7th year of the contract. And from what I heard and listened to on MLB Network's Sirius XM radio, the Phillies were like, okay, if you want the 7th year, we can work with you, but you need to lower the AAV and
stretch the AAV out.
Yeah, and from what we understood, Nola was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll remain a Philly. Just give me the 7th year." On the 20th, so yesterday, the Braves signed Reynaldo Lopez to a 3-year, $30 million deal. I'm pretty sure it's still pending physical, so it hasn't been like officially put through.
He's good.
It is? Okay. So that's that. And then there are 2 notable signings today. 2 by St. Louis. They brought Lance Lynn back on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Spending a bit much there, but let's see what happens. They also brought in Kyle Gibson on a 1-year, $12 million deal. Kind of the same thing. But I mean, I guess it can't exactly hurt to try.
What I would say is that's the move called. So St. Louis was one of the teams all in on Nola. I think that was we missed him. We got to go and get backups, but we're not going to wait for him, and we're going to go slightly overpay for these guys.
Yeah. And then the Chicago White Sox signed Paul DeJong to a contract today as well, just before we hopped on to our show here.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into this final segment before our Balk Talk question. Free agency predictions. Obviously, there are quite a bit of free agents. So we're just going to do the first 5. That way we can kind of cut down on time because it's getting close to dinner time.
Yeah. Well, it's your call on this too, because you picked the 5. I didn't. I literally do not have any of the 5, so I'm going to react intentionally. So this works.
I was going to say, I'm just going off of the first 5, although one of them I'm going to skip and throw a random player in there because he's already signed.
That was Nola.
Yep. This is from MLBTradeRumors.com's top 50 free agents with predictions. So the first one is going to be Shohei, obviously. what we're going to do here, this is news to Richie on the spot.
Cool.
Just a quick, okay, this is where I think he's going, year and dollar amount. Very rough. It's going to probably be wildly off, let alone with the years and dollars and the team. But
Fair.
number
Fair.
one is, in this way we can make it boom, 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 quick.
Yeah, I love it. No, I'm all about it.
Shohei, everyone's saying Ohtani is going to go to the Dodgers. I don't see him going there. They've talked about him potentially going to the Yankees, with Giancarlo's agent coming out and saying, yeah, don't sign with the Yankees unless you want to be constantly hurt. That's a major black eye and a red flag. The fact that Brian Cashman still somehow has a job because Hal Steinbrenner's morbidly in love with him, with the amount of word vomiting he has done. He came out and said that, oh yeah, the Yankees aren't going to sign Ohtani because of something he said when Ohtani was originally posted several years ago, which was he couldn't see himself in a big market club like that.
Oh,
which obviously things change.
He's in a big market club. LA is not small. He's in Anaheim. Like, I know he's playing for the Angels, not the Dodgers, but it's still big market.
Exactly. Brian Cashman is an absolute fool. I think because of how some of these moves have come so far at the beginning of the offseason, this is going to be the one where I think I'm definitely going to be wrong, but I could be right. Shohei signed with the Dodgers, or not the Dodgers, the Giants, for 12 years and 400. Oh, not 12 years. I'm going to say 10 years, 480 million.
Wow. Under the $500 million mark? Really? I thought you would go for it.
Incentives. There's going to be incentives.
There it is. Okay.
They'll be.
We're going to get there.
Incentives.
All right.
What do you think?
I think he does not sign with the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Like you, I think that's far off. I think everybody assuming that is ridiculous. I think it's stupid for him to do. I don't think he wants to be there either.
Yeah.
I think he actually signs kind of a flyer team here. And it's going to be a weird pick. But I think if he can, because of certain things, I think he signs with Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I think he signs with Seattle. I also don't think it's going to be that big a contract because I actually only have him at 2. I think he's going to sign like a 10-year 480, like you say, because I agree. I think that the number is pretty much right because I like 10 years 480. I think he's going to have a 2-year opt-out. Okay. Because he's going to have an opt-out in there because he's not going to pitch.
For the first year.
At least the first year. In all likelihood, he's not going to pitch the second year for the most part either because here's the thing. He will definitely hit. But that's going to slow down the rehab for his pitching, in theory. And this may be the thing that decides, hey, am I going to pitch ever again? Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I hope he does, but this might be the thing that says I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to have 70 home run years or 60 home run years and forget trying to be a pitcher too.
Yep. Second player, Cody Bellinger. I think he goes 10 years, $250 million in Chicago. He found.
You think he resigns, huh?
I think he resigns.
Really?
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I don't think he resigns. I actually think, and it's a weird one. Strangely, though, I think he signs about a 4-year, 5-year deal. Probably about somewhere in about $100 million. Okay. To play with. I have 2 teams. It's really bad to say I have 2 teams for this, but he either goes to St. Louis, or he goes to Milwaukee. Okay. I think he stays in the Central, but I don't think he goes back to the Cubs.
Pick one right now on the spot.
St. Louis.
Okay. Number 3, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Everything tells me the Yankees because they've got to make some big splash. I still don't think they're going to get top tier free agents because of all this hoopla going on, but they do need pitching to help out Garrett Cole. So I will agree with a lot of people that Yamamoto goes to the Yankees on about an 8-year deal for $200 million.
I have a heart pick and I have a head pick. My heart pick says he goes and signs with Philadelphia for about 8 years, or somewhere around that 125 million mark or 150 million mark, like you said.
Yeah.
My head, as much as I hate to say this, and it's going to be even harder for me to say this out loud, thinks he's a Steve Cohenite. I think he signs with the Mets.
Yeah.
For something along the lines of 10 years and almost 200 million.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just fits for he's a total Cohen guy.
Yeah.
He's going to overpay for him. He already did it with Kodai and it worked out well. He's going to do it again. And it sickens me, but I feel like that's the move.
I was going to say, you're saying the Mets?
I think it's the Mets. I think secretly there's a lot more teams in on him than and everybody thinks that the Phillies are out of him now because of Nola's re-signing. I think that only enhances it. I think that actually brings him in. They have to get out of Taijuan Walker's deal, but I think that that's a possibility of happening. So that's where I go.
All right. Number 4, Blake Snell. I think he goes to the Mets. About a 7-year, $180 million deal.
I don't think he goes to the Mets. I think he's a patented Dodger guy. He's a very Dodger guy to me. He's going to the Dodgers because I think that takes care of replacing Urias.
Okay.
For them. So
what's your years and number?
What he should get is 5. He's going to get no, he's probably about 5. I think he gets a 5-year, probably 125.
Okay. Number 5 was Mr. Nola. Obviously, we know what
we already got that one.
So mine that I'm going to throw at you is Josh Hader. I think he goes to the Phillies, 5 years, 102 mil.
I would love that. Please sign me up today. You know what? I would love that. What I actually feel, he's going to go to Toronto.
Okay.
He signs with Toronto for about probably 6 and 110.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fair. But we'll go ahead and transition to this final segment of the 2023 season of this season 1 of What's on Second. It's the Balk Talk. And I'll bring the one question, yours truly.
I have one for you, by the way. Don't worry. I did brew one. I want you. Do you want me to go first?
You give it to me.
So it was while we were talking about this. So my question is, because we were talking so hard about the ratings and the playoffs and things like that, balk or walk, Arizona makes the playoffs again next year.
Milwaukee on it.
Ooh, really? Because I'm balking myself. I don't think they make it.
I think they're going to add some pieces over the offseason that are going to keep them relevant. They're going to have all that momentum. They're going to have the experience. They might have a Cleveland drop off where they have a bit of a dud year, but I think they're good. I like what they have.
I'll tell you what, as long as they don't fall into the trap of doing exactly what Seattle did last year. If they stay pat, they will not make it. I just don't believe they'll make it again. I feel like there's way too many sophomore slumps coming. I'm not saying Corbin Carroll counts into this. I'm talking more of the Alec Thomases, just that young core. They have to re-sign Gurriel if they want to even stay relevant there. He's on the free agent market. I think he is going to be re-signed there, but Christian Walker's in a contract year. I don't know. There's a lot of things in Arizona that are in flux right now that they need to handle, and I would tell them to nip in the bud now.
That's fair.
Because if it gets to next year and all this stuff is still in flux, they're in trouble.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's all fair points. Mine here for you, it's not exactly a balk or walk. It's more of a question. So give me your quick take on it. Who's the better catcher? Buster Posey or Yadier Molina?
Oh God.
Yep.
Yikes. If I'm gonna have somebody behind the plate for me, if I'm creating a team and I get either one of them, I'm picking Yadi. I think Yadi's a better overall catcher. I think Buster was the better hitter.
Yeah.
But Buster was not as sustainable. I think Yadi is way more durable, and I think was a better game caller, in my opinion.
I would go with Buster.
The bat's appealing. Bias. I get it. The bat's appealing.
Yeah, the bat's appealing. I think he did a good enough job as a catcher, anyways. If Yachty were more offensive, then it's without a doubt you can't argue it, Yachty or Molina. But
we're talking in their prime, though, right? I mean, obviously, we're not talking like Yachty 2 years ago or anything like that. Right?
Well, I mean, just their career in general,
encompassing their career. I still take Yachty because Yachty's bat was great back in the day. Yachty was the back; it was the protection for Pujols for the better part of Pujols' entire career while he was in St. Louis. I almost said Seattle. Wow. No, I would tell you I would take Yachty hands down in that regard. Not saying that, again, this is not a knock on Buster Posey. Buster Posey is pretty much, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. I don't see any way he doesn't get in. With that. I do have one other question for you because I did just think about it. Because of next year's class, Hall of Fame class is very interesting because you have Todd Helton's and the kind of guys like that are up and eligible. Guys that are like from our heyday, which is kind of scary to think about. But since that class is in session, do you think that we will receive any first ballot Hall of Famers like we did in the past couple years with like David Ortiz and such? But we have a lot of good names on these lists, possibly to get a first. Do you think there is a first ballot Hall of Famer in there? Names to consider here. I'm just going to give you some names that are coming on this list. On that are newcomers. This is just newcomers. Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, David Wright, Bartolo Colon, Matt Holliday, Jose Bautista, just to name a few.
I think if any of them did, it would be Joe Mauer. I'm not sold that there's going to be any first ballot Hall of Famers.
I would agree. Yet. I think all of them are going to stay on the ballot. In his another couple names here that are on the ballot as well that are in there. Obviously, I mentioned Todd Helton. He's on his 6th year on the ballot. Billy Wagner's on his 9th. Andrew Jones is on his 7th. The fact that Andrew Jones is not a Hall of Famer is kind of, and I'm a brave hater. But the fact that he's not a Hall of Famer is stupid to me.
Yeah.
Gary Sheffield is in his 10th and final year. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry, Gary. I just truly don't. But honestly, you know what, though? I have to reevaluate because if freaking Scott Rowland could get in there, you deserve to be in there because I don't think Scott Rowland's a Hall of Famer either. Sorry, Scott. I'm going to be honest. A-Rod's in his 3rd year on the ballot. Manny Ramirez is on there. Obviously, I know the whole steroid thing is a problem there. Omar Vizquel, not really worried about him. Andy Pettitte should be a Hall of Famer as well. I would see him in there. And I mean, if Scott Rowland can get in, there's no reason to think that Bobby Abreu can't freaking get in.
Yeah.
So, and again, this pains me to think about because if you're going to put Scott Rowland in, all those newcomers I just mentioned should all be first ballots because there's no reason they shouldn't be because Scott Rowland is not a Hall of Famer in my opinion. I'm sorry. I hate to be that guy, but he's not. And he was a Philly at one point, but he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With that.
But on that note, guys, that is a wrap on the 2023 season of What's on Second, a true baseball podcast. It has been a fantastic ride. I'm so happy that you guys joined us this long season. You kind of stuck with us along our bumps, our inconsistencies, but we're growing, we're learning. We're going to start fine-tuning this show here in the next probably month or so. And we've already got some ideas cooking on how we want to maybe change it up a little bit for, make it a little more interesting.
Yeah, we got some ideas cooking already.
Yeah, exactly.
Some other things we might think about doing. Maybe we might bring in somebody to actually produce the show to give us a break so we could focus on strictly being on-air talent. Because, guys, not to toot our own horn, and I'm not trying to say that we deserve all the praise in the world because we're just two average Joes by any stretch of the imagination. We just really love the game, and we're very devoted to educating people on it. Yep. But it takes a lot of work to not only do the show like we're doing on air right now, but also then take the show, go back, clean it all up, edit it, all that stuff. If you've seen the video clips we started doing halfway through the year, snipping those, doing all that takes a lot of time. sometimes it's just not something that's feasible for us, as you've seen. I mean, I know I'm not surprising anybody when you see our social media kind of go quiet for a while. We need to keep it up with it. So maybe we might look at bringing in somebody to help produce the show, things like that. We've had ideas about bringing some guests on, maybe having fans interact in the show, maybe having them maybe inviting guests on, as far as like having people listen in on the show and just comment, maybe give them access to the meeting that we're in, obviously we via Zoom, which is what we usually use when we're trying to record. I think you and I want to get on the road, maybe some spring training shows on the road and things like that. There's a lot of things we want to do with the show, so we appreciate you all being here with us, sticking with us, having fun with us. We want to keep growing the show. Please keep sharing it with your friends and family, whoever wants to listen. We have a lot of fun. We can't wait to continue doing it. We had a successful season 1. It's time for year 2, and I think we're only going to get bigger and better.
We're only going to get bigger and better. I mean, season 1, 2023 flew by, but guess what? 2024 is right around the corner, literally, let alone spring training and all of that. So it'll be, before you know it, that we'll be dropping an episode at the start of spring training before we get into the grind.
Yes.
And we hope to see you out there on the diamond next year.